Hello and welcome to the Biz Daily. So today we're talking about what else? Fallout Shelter. So Fallout Shelter has been out for about 2 weeks now. It was announced during Bethesda's E3 press conference and immediately available on the App Store, only on the App Store, massive push from Apple. And since then it's kind of been going from strength to strength, certainly in terms of its downloads in the first week, and then kind of lagging that a little bit in terms of its top grossing ability. So all the headlines last week were Fallout Shelter knocks Candy Crush Saga off the number 3 spot in the United States App Store. As with all of these kind of headline stories, it was true for about a day, maybe 2 days. So what we'll be looking at today is in our charticle, which is as it sounds like an article, which is a chart. So we look at the top grossing performance of various games around the world. And this week we've been looking at Fallout Shelter, because I thought 2 weeks is a sufficient time to get an idea of how the game's performing and kind of what changes we're seeing. So perhaps it's unsurprising, very few games have been announced in such a kind of surprising manner. No one really knew it was coming, and immediately everyone was on the app stores downloading it. So we saw the downloads, and then we saw the kind of top grossing nature, and obviously it started from nothing. So for the first couple of days it was increasing everywhere. I guess what was interesting, as we kind of imagined, that Fallout Shelter did best and still is doing best in those markets where Fallout as a brand, a PC and a console game, has done the best. So typically these have been the English-speaking markets. So when it comes to app stores, that's the US, the UK, Australia, and Canada. They're the big markets. And it's in all those territories it's done very well. It's gone top 10 last week. We've seen it, it has in decline. It is in decline now. So in most of those territories it's now top 20, or in Australia it's top 30 on iPhone. So we're seeing a slight decline. If we look at some other big markets, so non-English markets, English-speaking markets. So typically for these ones we look at France and Germany, and also this time we looked at Russia. So in all those countries, again, it performed very well. Not quite as well as in the UK and those English-speaking territories, but still in France and Germany and in Russia, even though it's been a little bit lower in Russia, it's still a top 30 grossing game. So the kind of the initial kind of excitement has fallen off a little bit in the past week. But yeah, anyone will be happy with the game in the top 30 grossing charts on iPhone in these countries. When it comes to iPad, it's not done. It's pretty much done the same on iPad, but it's just because of the type of game it is. It's very much a drop-in kind of level some stuff up, kind of collect your resources and come out again. It's not a game where you're playing long time periods, so it's not really an iPad game. So we've seen slightly better performance on iPhone. I guess. What we have seen, and I guess what potentially has been also interesting, is how the game has done in Asia. So Asia is now, depending on who you talk to, either as big as the West or bigger than the West in terms of revenue. And so the big 3 territories there are China, South Korea and Japan. Now Korea is the most Western of those markets, and Fallout Shelter, unsurprisingly, has done the best in Korea. So it's kind of gone roughly top 100, but it's just outside the top 100 now. But it's done the best there. The problem with Bethesda is that Korea is pretty much a majority, or a vast majority, Google Play market. Obviously, Fallout Shelter is not out for Android yet. We assume it will be at some point, but it's very hard to kind of see how well it's done in Korea, just because iPhone isn't such a big market over there. In China, iPhone is very big. We can't. It's not done quite so well, so it kind of skirted the top 100 and now is in the top 200-ish. And Japan is the weirdest market of all those 3. Not weird, but from maybe weird's the wrong word, but it's the most localized market and the most kind of difficult for Western games to get into, and it's not done very well there at all. I think broadly, looking at how Fallout Shelter has done in the 2 weeks, what's really been surprising is that it's not dropped. What's been surprising isn't that it's dropped off. That's everyone was expecting that. But what's been surprising is it's dropped off far slower than people were expecting. And the reasons for that are, it's a single player game, so there's very little, no interaction at all. There's no multiplayer mode. You can't look at other people's shelters. There's no interaction there. There's not even any virality. There's no Twitter or there's no Facebook interaction. And so even in the example of Flappy Birds, which we could kind of see perhaps as an example or a similar game in how it exploded on the scene, but in Flappy Birds you could tweet out your score. I mean, there's nothing like that in Fallout Shelter built into it at least. And the other thing is it's not been updated. It's very unclear if the content will be updated, and the people who are playing this and paying a lot of money in it, they're going to run out of content eventually, or fairly soon really. So in a way, kind of Fallout Shelter's success kind of goes against all the kind of design conditions that people should be designing their free-to-play games for. So again, I mean, that's the surprise it's been a success, but the argument is, and I think it's been proven now, particularly by how slow the decline is happening, is it's just a brand that Fallout is so strong that's attracting people, and probably maybe to a degree the people who are big Fallout fans have probably not been playing potentially a lot of free-to-play games on mobile, so this is like maybe their first kind of proper deep experience of free-to-play games, and so they've been happier to kind of spend in that because it's a brand that they know and love, rather than they kind of feel, oh, it's not just one of those rubbish mobile games, this is like proper Fallout, and they trust Bethesda. So it's still fascinating us. Fallout Shelter probably will do so for the months to come. We'll still be tracking it, but that's the news today.